Yalchin for setting the scene for us. And dear friends and colleagues, we have this beautiful auditorium and we have a fantastic lay of panelists, colleagues, my team members that will really deep dive into each of these human development aspects that the chief negotiator has unveiled for us. We will talk about education, about health, skills and jobs, and what's the key role for the young people to play when it comes to climate action. We will also explore where the issue of human mobility might fit into this critical nexus. So without further ado, let me turn to our esteemed panelists and present them. First of all, next to me is Mr. Hassan Hassanli, who is the Deputy Minister of Science and Education. Then it's my colleague, Dr. Sajja Farou, who is leading the UNICEF country office and is part of the UN country team Azerbaijan. Next to her, my colleague from IOM, Chief of Mission, Mr. Troy Dolly. Nigar is, I think, well known to all of us. And I'm very happy that we have the pleasure to have the COP29 high-level champion and member of the parliament be with us today. And I have two more colleagues who are part of this panel. Yashar Hamzaev, who is the ILO National Coordinator, and last but not least, Dr. Kamran Mashadi, who is representing WHO in this particular panel. So allow me to kick off the discussion with the Deputy Minister and ask you, why is education key to address all the efforts that we need to do to achieve sustainable development goals and action and climate action being really at the core of it? We know that education empowers everyone. In particular, it's critical that the young people have all the opportunity and access, because we do want young people to be really the active agents of change in the fight against the climate change. So, could you tell us, in your view, what is the significance of education within the COP29 planned events? How does education and ministry has positioned itself together with the partners? And what are the main initiatives that we could expect to be announced during COP29, but also what are your plans for the day after, once COP29 finishes? Over to you, Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Ms. Andreeva. It's my understanding that we're starting with the easier questions, so that's good to know. Excellencies, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and a privilege to speak on behalf of the Ministry of Science and Education of Azerbaijan. Welcome to all the guests who've come to join us for the pre-COP events. This is, I think, for us, for our country, for our colleagues, within the year of solidarity for a greener world, a milestone for what we're going to do all together for both the kids and climate in the forthcoming years. Now, I can talk for a long time in terms of how education can impact behavior, but I think I'll borrow from the wonderful initiative that is put forward by the COP29 presidency, which has the word resilience in it, and this is to do with climate resilience first and foremost. But we need to understand that obviously if the kids are not resilient, if the systems are not resilient, if the instruction is not resilient, we're not going to get where we want to go. Now, how do we make sure kids are resilient? A couple of things come to mind, and I'll try to link that with what we are planning to do within our initiatives during the main COP discussions. Now, first and foremost, obviously, they need to be skilled. If they have the knowledge of climate change, if they have the urgency of dealing with climate change, but if they don't have the skills to do that or to address it, then that's just going to cause a lot of anxiety, and anxiety is quite destructive, to say the least, to learning. And we need to make sure that kids are equipped with the necessary know-how to actually deal with the complex problem of climate change. Now, what stands at the foundation? It's obviously being able to recognize that it's a global problem, that we're all in it together, that we need to work together to solve it. If we need to work together, we need to know how to work together. And that's important. And that's probably the hardest question that our colleagues in education are trying to grapple with. Now, to work together, what we do in schools, we work on project-based learning. We get kids to work together, to collaborate. And a great example of that in terms of what we're doing within COP is the STEM festival we're going to hold on October 24th, 25th. We're going to get kids from different countries around the world to come together and to work on various challenges. Well, appropriately this year, it's all about the green transition, the topics of energy, and we are very excited because we believe that if they learn how to work together, and most importantly, if learning is fun, then we're going to get the necessary change to happen. Now, second initiative that we've got going, this is all about how the education system works. So, again, my colleagues will understand and will support probably, if you do not change what you assess or evaluate, you're not going to have much success if you just throw information at, especially kids. Now, what happens when we talk about content? Now, at COPS, even for the ministries before us and for our ministry, it's relatively easy to come up with a lot of content delivered locally, a lot of trainings delivered locally, also content delivered online, which is what we've been engaging with our colleagues from the UAE as well. But we feel an important part of all of this is to do something about assessment. So as long as assessment is not part of the conversation, you're not going to get that chain that leads from, let's say, interest to results when it comes to climate education. And together with the OECD and UNESCO, we're now discussing on how we can amplify the discussion on assessment and how can we bring the subject of climate change into assessment metrics like PISA, like PEARLS, like TIMSS, and so on. We feel that if this conversation happens there, this will then trickle down to national systems, to education systems, to schools, because whether it's fair or not, but systems tend to orient towards what's being measured. And this is one of the initiatives of the COP29 presidency and the Ministry of Science and Education to kind of get this, let's say, coalition around this topic and to really move this forward. And the third thing, perhaps, that is important is being able to share experiences. And this is very, very, let's say, context-based, obviously. Every country has their own experience. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to teach kids, and we're all trying to make sure that human development, which is the title of the session on November 18th, is actually happening. And the collaboration goes a long way when it comes to solving a problem that is that hard, right? So we'll be bringing together at COP29 the Greening Education Partnership member countries together with UNESCO and looking at how do we continue pushing forward the agreements reached in previous meetings. And particularly, obviously, COP29 is all about climate finance. We are looking forward to discuss green school standards and how that affects, how the environment affects kids and how the environment affects instruction. And that's a little teaser, but I don't want to go too far. We'll see if we can reach some kind of a, let's say, discussion and resolution in terms of what are the minimum standards, at least with regards to how these things are organized within schools. So I tried to discuss very briefly I understand it's a short period of time, but I can go on and on for a long time. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I'm saving the tough questions for my team. So these were super easy questions to which you have elaborated very eloquently and highlighting, I think, the most important thing. We do need collaboration and cooperation in order to tackle the climate crisis, the importance of young people getting the skills, but also the importance actually to push for certain standards, including with other ministries of education and science around the globe, and obviously COP29 is going to be a beautiful platform to further discuss the Baku 12 principles that the chief negotiator mentioned in his opening remarks. Still following on the education team in a way, let me cite for you the findings from UNICEF report in 2023 titled The Climate Changed Child. And according to this report, the climate has exacerbated disasters, and this has effectively disrupted the education for nearly 40 million children around the world. And this continues to increase each year. And at the same time, the children that were lucky enough to have floods or hurricanes or earthquakes and being able to be in school, they still did not receive the right level of knowledge and training. So this obviously worries us on so many different levels. And I would like to ask Saja, what are some of the strategies, some of the interventions that UNICEF does globally and specifically here in Azerbaijan to address this growing issue?
Thank you, Vladanka, and good afternoon, Excellencies, guests, friends, and colleagues. It's really a pleasure to be part of this panel, and I think it's nicely flowed, the discussion around education. I would like to start really first by thanking the COP29 presidency on the collaboration on the road to the COP event, but also on the leadership of the Youth Climate Champion, really to place children and youth always in the heart of decisions. And we as UNICEF very much welcome the COP29 presidency letter to parties that was released a few weeks ago on the action agenda, which really bring the focus of children, youth, and they were mainstreamed throughout the human development, Children and Youth Health Education Day on the 18th, which will further really elevate attention on children and youth. And I would like just to mention, during the expert dialogue on the disproportionate impact of climate change on children that took place in Bonn this year, there was a very interesting discussion with the COP presidency represented by Youth Climate Champion, and a lot of policy solutions were presented in the room. And of course, among them is to focus on child essential critical services, and education is on the top of that, beside health and others. And thank you, Vladanka. You mentioned how climate is changing children not only in their bodies, their minds, and also their ability to learn. So let me also mention, since we are talking about human development, that investing in human development should really start with investing in children. And at the same time, empowering children through education and their meaningful participation in the climate decision-making process and access to justice is crucial to reinforce child rights. Now, zooming into the question, how can we strengthen the education system to be more resilient? I would like to mention the global approach of UNICEF, and that we are working not only with Azerbaijan or the COP presidencies during the previous years to mainstream education, but also we work with governments in all continents to ensure that children most affected by climate impact have access to climate education, green skills for climate adaptation, and that they can learn in a safe environment that would stand the climate shocks. So we have our strategy, which aim by 2030 to support 50 million children in 60 countries with sustainability and climate education, and also to work with communities to build resilience against future climate risks. We believe, and I'm sure you will all disagree with me, will agree with me, that education play a transformative role in preparing children for a changing world by equipping them with the skills and knowledge. Our approach in climate and education is to enhance the partnership and advocacy through 4 main pillars. Number 1 is greening learning and skills for climate change education. Number 2 is youth-led climate action for youth advocates. Number 3 is greening capacities of system for education resilience. And number 4 is greener and safer learning facilities for climate resilient infrastructure. All of them is aiming at equipping children, students, and teachers with the skills that they need for the adaptation and mitigation efforts. Transforming education system to be more climate resilient require holistic approach, of course, and require strong partnership to tackle the issue. I mean, from the infrastructure that we mentioned, to have a early warning system, as well as the curriculum and learning. Therefore, UNICEF partner globally with other UN agencies, with the World Bank, and make technical assistance and funding available to reach every child. Now, there is initiatives such as the Deputy Minister mentioned, Greening Education Partnership, and the Green Jobs for Youth Impact, and the Global Alliance for Disaster Risk Reduction and Resilience in Education Sector, among others, are really all an effort to mobilize resources and advocacy efforts to ensure the focus or to ensure the flow of the climate finance to education. And these partnerships are really very important to go into larger scale with education system. And since 2020, I would like to mention that UNICEF co-chair this global alliance to promote school safety through the comprehensive school and safety framework. And now in Azerbaijan, we are working as well closely with the Ministry of Science and Education. We have rolled out several exciting initiatives. Among them is a Green Skills Through STEM initiative, and that was the Deputy Minister, you mentioned that we will have in October the big festival. This will support children and adults, and the STEM program is supporting children and adolescents in 8 regions in Azerbaijan to explore and develop their talents in science, technology, their creativity, and innovative ideas for green technology. Also, on behalf of UNICEF, I would like to congratulate the Ministry of Science and Education for this visionary approach to promote STEM in the country and across Azerbaijan, and to your commitment to provide opportunity for all students really to explore their talents. And finally, I want to congratulate the government of Azerbaijan for their willingness to sign the Declaration on Children, Youth, and Climate Action during the COP, and joining 50 more countries for their commitment to place children in the heart of the climate policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Sajda. That was a comprehensive list of actions that UNICEF is undertaking both at global and at country level. As a UN family in Azerbaijan, we have obviously partnered with the Youth Climate Champion for COP29, with Ms. Leila Hassanova, and we were really trying to, well, support her together with UNFCCC colleagues in her global role, but also benefit locally to really spark enthusiasm among young people in Azerbaijan of importance of climate action. As part of our strategy as UN country team in Azerbaijan to really raise awareness leading to COP29, we have designed an initiative called 29 Climate Conversations, towards COP29. We have had 25 so far. We will have the very last one during COP29. And just last week, we had a very interesting conversation that has been co-organized with our IOM colleagues and together with COP29 presidency. And we talked about the very important intersection of climate change and human mobility and how actually migration can be an adaptation tool. So, Troy, few thoughts on this. How does really migration feature in this whole human development and climate change nexus? What are some of the recommendations from broader IOM and UN system perspective that you would like to offer, and especially, going forward and in the final shaping, if you will, of this Baku initiative on human development? Over to you.
Great, thank you, Vladimir, and it's a real pleasure to be able to speak today. I think I'll just quickly cover two aspects when we think about human mobility, excuse me, and human development. So, when we think about human mobility in the context of climate change, often we think of the negative aspects, which is obvious and required also. So, I think if we saw last year, we saw around 26 million people across 148 countries displaced, so new displacements because of climate-related disasters. And now what we're seeing is displacement is, it's more prevalent than it is due to conflict. So, what we're seeing with displacement is massive impacts on human development. Just to give one example, if a super typhoon hits a country, often communities go to schools for evacuation centers, and because the typhoons are getting stronger, their shelters are not resilient, and you see this protracted displacement in school, which impacts on education. So, overall, you're seeing this huge impact on human development because of climate and disasters. To address this, I think what we need to do is basically look at what we're doing in these conversations, obviously, but right down to that community level, and the opportunities and challenges that lie there. So first of all, we need to prioritize disaster risk reduction activities that are contextualized locally, and early warning systems for communities. Now, to do this, obviously, we need finance, which is obviously a big conversation. And how do we leverage, basically the loss and damage fund? How we use these mechanisms to look at financing for these local communities. Now, we don't have a lot of time, so I'll quickly jump to something that's more positive around human mobility when it comes to climate. So if you look to World Bank figures from last year, we had $656 billion in remittances going to low and middle income countries. Now, what does this mean for local communities that are impacted by climate change? I've seen firsthand in disasters after massive typhoons, for example, where communities that have a migrant worker in their family have more resilient shelters. They're the homes that are standing in these communities. And what we're seeing is this development, this climate resiliency being directly linked to international migration. At the same time, we're also seeing a massive shortage in labor globally. Just one example is nurses, for example. There is high demand. States are competing very strongly for healthcare workers for their countries, and so there is this demand there also for labor. So facilitating pathways, facilitating safe and orderly regular migration is an opportunity for these communities. Now, if we look to COP28, it was mentioned that the Paris Green climate goals could be hampered because there's not enough workforce, basically, or enough people to do the jobs that are required. So linking this in these discussions, thinking about how these communities that are most impacted by climate change are already being impacted, are already migrating, can access the skills, the training, the ability to look to migration as a resource and an adaptation strategy to build the resilience of the community. And ultimately what we want is communities to be able to be empowered to make the choice to migrate rather than having to. So just to quickly wrap up, we do have obviously international mechanisms around the UNFCCC, the Sinai Framework, the Global Compact on Migration, the SDGs and others. And what we really aim to do in these conversations is be inclusive, making sure these communities have a voice, making sure that they're there, have a voice, and be able to communicate with policymakers and those making decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. To break this block of UN interventions, if you will, we have the heart and the dynamo of COP29 presidency team with us. Ms. Nigar Aratabdari, she is the COP29 high-level champion, and she has been really instrumental, again, not just to bring awareness at the global level, but here at the country level, we have partnered very closely with Nigar Hanum on a number of initiatives. And let me say once again publicly, congratulations on fantastic Baku Climate Week. And we have ended the week with a very symbolic 1.5 kilometers walk on the Sea Boulevard, just to highlight the importance of keeping the global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Nigar, you have been super active. I mean, these 9 months have been really intensive for the COP29 presidency team. For colleagues who are in the audience, who are in Azerbaijan, for my UNFCCC colleagues, we know the tall task that Azerbaijan had in front of them, but for the other guests at the pre-COP meeting, I mean, it has been really quite an experience and inspiration to accompany COP29 presidency team on the journey, and to in particular be with Nigar and see how she has mobilized different constituencies around the world and in Azerbaijan as well. Part of your work, really, as a high-level champion, was also to reach out to the private sector, but also to empower and enable small and medium enterprises. So, in this line, can you maybe share with us some of the strategies around SMEs, empowerment, if you will, and climate resilience, and some of the initiatives that have been undertaken?
Thank you so much, Radanka. First of all, I would also like to thank you for all your support during the Baku Climate Action Week and throughout all these months. One thing is amazing. We have such an energy and support from everyone in the climate community that brings that optimism and hope that we are doing our best and we are going through the right way, and we will get there. So, well, yes, first of all, we need to accept that the climate change is the biggest challenge that humanity is facing. So that's something that we need to understand, and this is something that unites everyone in the world. It comes with challenges, obviously, but it also comes with opportunities. Like, there are new ways that if we do everything right as a humanity, we can have absolutely new types of economies in the future. So as per statistics, like just transition can bring around 24 million jobs by 2030, and underscoring the need for targeted green skills and reskilling programs. So that's the biggest debate that we have now, I think, in the world, that will it bring all those green jobs, the new types of jobs? Well, if you ask me, that we not only have the challenge of climate change in front of us, but we have absolutely new realities that we need to adjust to. So it comes with understanding of a new way. We need to think, we need to study, we need to live our life, we need to run our businesses. Not only climate change and green skills are necessary, but we also have artificial intelligence being a part of our lives. And let's ask ourselves a question whether our education system is responding to new challenges. I'm sorry we have our Minister of Education with us, but it is not. It is not. So what we need a new approach. I believe. And it covers everything. We will speak about SMEs, and I'm very passionate about private sector being leading in this fight with climate change, because we cannot solve the issues that we want to solve without private sector. That's one thing for sure. But SMEs is the vulnerable group out of this, because SMEs are lagging behind. They will need to adjust to new regulations. They will need to adjust to new policies. They will need to adjust to lack of finance. And what we see now, SMEs are lagging behind because they have no understanding, they have no capacity to make this green transition, they have no access to finance. So how can we help them? It's all these subjects are very interconnected. So again, we need the new approaches. What I think is, first of all, to education and training. How are we putting our education system in a place for new requirements, to be able to bring the new generation of leaders with new types of skills, with new understanding of reality, the new generation of leaders that will be able to succeed in both politics, in economy, in the business, and to shape this future. And also we will need leadership development, so new skills that will be needed. And when we speak about new education, we will obviously need new climate literacy programs that will be teaching our children and youth on new sustainability practices. So we basically need access to resources, which is also in many cases are lacking. And when we speak about SMEs specifically, so we need to give them confidence in many places, but we also need to teach them how to access finance. So that's a missing part, because when you come to businessman, let's say, to business owner, and you are telling them that, okay, you are polluting the environment and you need to adjust, he's saying that, okay, I have a credit from a bank. How can I access that? So all this comes in a package. It's not only about finance, it's about education, it's about health, it's about green skills, it's about the way we will be educating, and we will be bringing on board a new type of leadership. So that's again extremely kind of big subject, but I'm really happy that we have now, as a presidency, if you've seen, we have came with 14 initiatives, and one of the initiatives, which is one of the most important ones, is on human development, because we need to address many of the issues that will be appearing. And yes, I think that SMEs should be there. We need to think about the real economy actors, because in many cases, when you speak about SMEs, you speak about women entrepreneurs, you speak about young people, you speak about startups, and we need to incentivize all of them.
Thank you, Nigar Hanım. In the heart of all these are people. And now I will ask my colleague from Iowa, Yashar, to share with us some of the strategies that Iowa is pushing forward to really ensure that this very disruptive way when it comes to trying to transition the economies to low carbon ones is sometimes leaving people without jobs, without right skills, and without access to finance to really manage that transition in a just manner. So, in this context, Yashar, what is Iowa doing to ensure that the transition is just, people have access and opportunities to reskill themselves, but also the economies are really being incentivized to have more green jobs?
Thank you very much, Vladanka, for inviting the Iowa to the panel. For our participants, Iowa is the oldest UN agency and the specialist UN agency operating in the field of labor and social protection, and I am the only Iowa staff in the country now have intern. Thanks to Vladanka and UNCT, I am not feeling that I am alone. And Iowa global research shows that all occupations will be affected by just transition. That's why education and training are essential elements. And moreover, jobs turnover will happen at the mid-skills level. That's why initial education training and continuing training, particularly technical vocational education and training and lifelong trainings are essential elements. Also, by providing this education and training to young people, we steer the young people to have more opportunities in the future to get green jobs. For current workers, experienced workers, it's rather reskilling or upskilling. Another interesting element that gender segregation will remain the challenge even for the just transition period, and we have to be very careful to pay attention at the inclusive opportunities, particularly for young women and men. Also, I should say that the ILO is working on the tripartite basis, tripartism, so we have three partners at the national level, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, Confederation of Trade Unions and Confederation of Employers and Entrepreneurs. And we are supporting our constituents first in enhancing skills policy and environmental policy to define and anticipate skills and also skills development. In July, we had a very interesting event with our constituents, ended with call for action to just transition. In the frame of this call for action to just transition, the ILO National Coordinator made awareness-raising campaign in the fascinating place of Azerbaijan, Khnavik, and interesting questions are raised by the people of Khnavik. Since there is a difference between us who are living in the city and people who are living in the mountains in the severe conditions, they have to be pragmatic. They have to raise the pragmatic questions. There are two questions they raised. Who will take the financial burden for just transition, and whether the ecologically friendly technologies and vehicles will suffer the severe conditions of the mountains. So it is very important, and it is in line with our event, that investment into education, into training, into just transition is a very important element. The next day, the ILO National Coordinator made ascent to the highest mountain of Azerbaijan, and it's also a highest mountain for Dagestan, Bazar Duzu, 4,466 meters, while inscribing on the top of the mountain our logo, just transition, on the ice using the natural stones. And agreed with Azerbaijani and Dagestani sportsmen to keep this logo, this concept. Hopefully it is still there. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yashar. And we have mentioned, and all the panelists so far have highlighted, obviously, the importance of the political will, but also the importance of access to financing to ensure that some of these actions are being undertaken. And just 2 days ago, there was a ministerial high-level meeting in the dawn of this pre-COP to really discuss the new quantifiable collective goal that should be really the answer of some of these collective aspirations to address climate crisis, but also should be a sign of shared responsibility to help the ones that are most affected and the ones that are most vulnerable. The very last aspect that with today's panel we would like to tackle when it comes to the human development is the health. And that is one of the most important issues. People are highly vulnerable when they are in climate crisis, when they're affected by floods, when they're affected by earthquakes. not having access to primary healthcare services literally affects children, men, women, and it does take a lot of effort to put in place climate resilient health system. It's a discussion that I think is more featured on the global climate discussion scene, if you will, over the last few years. And I would like to ask Cameron to maybe talk about some of the specific adaptation measures that the World Health Organization is promoting and working with member states to really ensure that the health system can be resilient to the climate change.
Thank you, Radenka, and Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a pleasure for me to say in my prelude that as WHO, we are very much pleased with the developments that are taking place over the last several COPs. And this is providing as an impetus to further improve the health and climate agenda in terms of improving the health systems and bringing it more impactful and effective for the people. And looking ahead, we do expect from the COP29 presidency as well to take forward the Baku Initiative on Human Development for Climate Resilience in order for us to work with the WHO member states and leverage those partnerships and coalitions in order to strengthen the health systems and make sure the health community is able to continue investments in terms of the health infrastructure, which are more resilient and able to provide support to our workforce, which intends to provide all the support to the human development. In response to the specific point, what the government should do, I think there are a few very important things that I would like to highlight here. That to start with, the government should focus on the impact of climate change and health and climate change in all policies with a more focused approach towards One Health with the quadripartite of the UN system and WOAH. The governments, with the help of WHO and UN partners, collectively need to develop national adaptation plan based on climate change and vulnerability assessments, decarbonize the health system and all the infrastructure that we have, the logistics and the supply chains, as well as collaborate with the WHO-led platform, the Alliance for Transformation Action on Climate and Health. In terms of data, integrate the climate data for early warning, response to the pandemics, and bringing up innovative solutions to address the emerging diseases that we are noticing from COVID-19 and now Marburg virus and other issues. Together, the governments could mobilize funding from multilateral developments and funding organizations, which will help us to bring this agenda forward with sustainable financing, invest in climate change adaptation measures for early warning and disease preparedness, promote awareness from among general masses, and also make this health workforce more amenable to the kind of threats that we are facing in the coming years, and with the changing nature of various microorganisms, bringing up new outbreaks and pandemics and epidemics in several parts of the world. In part of this second part of the question, that what are the recent achievements, I would say that health has become a central focus during the last several COPs, and we are happy that the national adaptation plans are now being developed by several member states. The COP26 developed a national report on climate change and health, the health argument for climate action, bringing health to the forefront of the climate discussions, and then in Egypt, the launch of initiative on climate action and nutrition. In the UAE, the first Health Day saw the adoption of Declaration on Climate and Health. So these are the new initiatives which are coming up, and then gradually in the health policies of various countries with the ministries of health, more health agenda with its impact on health with the climate change is being integrated in the health policies. And WHO is providing its framework for sustainable health systems in order to make sure that every facet, every component of the health system is contributing towards a more sustainable approach. WHO is supporting several regional initiatives in this regard, and WHO-led coalition is helping for the Health Impact Investment Fund, which is also moving forward. So in conclusion, I would like to say that all those are very heartwarming kind of approaches that we are trying to adapt, as well as the kind of response that we are getting from international community and the member states. And we would like to take it forward in the form of a special report, which WHO is going to launch very soon, about the issues, the solutions, and how to make them more sustainable in the emerging threats that we are facing. And that report will be launched very shortly, I would say, as part of this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cameron. With this we have wrapped up with the interventions from our panelists, and we do have time and an opportunity for the audience to ask questions or give reflections if there are any. You can just stand up if you're interested to contribute to the discussion. I don't see anyone. Then I will take that this esteemed panel was successful enough to highlight and share the very critical importance of climate-smart education, good health and well-being, real skills, and the central role that youth needs to play in the climate action. It has been also very clear from all the interventions that we need to invest in all these areas and do it simultaneously to ensure that our institutions, our communities are climate resilient and people are healthy, are educated, and have the skills to fully grasp and tackle the complexities of the climate crisis. One thing that has been very clear, I think, to the world and in particular to the Azerbaijani audience over the last 9 months, as the awareness has been really actively rising in leading and preparations to COP29, that climate action really demands a whole of society approach and a whole of society action. And with this, I would like to thank once again the panelists and to thank the audience for being with us this afternoon. And I will pass on the baton to the second panel.